Hey everyone, welcome back to the Scaling Podcast. I'm your host, Aaron Harper. On today's episode, I'm joined by Shannon Jean, entrepreneur, deal maker, and host of the Business Brain podcast. Shannon launched over 10 companies from landscape construction to iMac repair to e-commerce, and we talk about how he bootstrapped his way through multiple industries.
That's a really powerful thing. I always talk about this thing, I call it the $1,000 brain switch. And, because everybody throws these big numbers out, like, oh, $10 million and 10x this and all this and that's great. But, there's a lot of people that don't know how to make $1,000. And if you can show someone, like, look, let me show you, this is how I would do it, and this is it, and you could make an extra $1,000 a month, that's life-changing. Not just the money, but the shift in your brain.
This episode is about consistency, curiosity, and how to keep reinventing yourself without ever needing to start over. Let's dive in. Shannon, welcome to the show, man.
Hey, thanks for having me, Aaron. Great to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited. I've been looking forward to this. I've been wanting to get to know you for a while and love your content, love everything you're doing online, and
Thank you.
Excited to learn more.
Cool. Yeah, having the time of my life up there.
Yeah. So tell me about, you started a business, your first business you started, and then catch me up to now, and I might pause you and double click on some different things so I could learn more. But yeah, kind of catch me up to speed. Let me learn more, a little bit more about you.
Yeah. So my first business, I was in the landscape construction business, and I was still in college and trying to work with all my buddies, and it turned out that most of them didn't want to work with me. They wanted to work for me and not have the responsibility. They wanted to be able to drink beers and, go out and party and not have to interact with clients. And I didn't mind that stuff. So it became, it just kind of became part of the first system I really learned. And as I was getting ready to get out of college, I got involved in technology, and it made me look so much smarter than I really was. I was able to charge my clients so much better. I mean, I was just a kid, so I could, instead of charging 20 grand for a job, I could charge 50 or 75 because it just looked so much nicer. And I thought, man, it's having a big impact on my life. I really would like to, build a business around this. And so I started another company and started, with a buddy of mine, and I wanted to learn about all this stuff. So nobody would hire me because I didn't know anything about technology, but so we volunteered at a company and just got in there and started working and learning everything, and started our first company that really grew. It started as Mac Rescue. It eventually became Rescue Systems. And, we were just kids and in the spare bedroom, and all of a sudden we were doing $250,000 a month. And wow. It was wild. It was great. I was like, man, this is really fun. I can never, and of course, being young and naive is like, well, this will just go up, 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 up. It'll never stop. Right. So, so that business was, great. And as we got going, we built it up, and we built, different divisions within it. We had a sales division, refurbishment, parts, educational, repairs, all kinds of different stuff. We just kept expanding. And then along the way, I realized that after we got to a certain point, I get bored. I have a problem where I'm not a great maintenance person. I'm a deal guy. And so I started another company. It was like, well, I want to get involved. And my kids were just growing up, starting to go to school, and I needed to start a business to pay for their private school. We wanted to, send them to school. We didn't have the revenue. So we started a company called Deals on the Web. I found a guy who was great at, web development. He had a website called Mac Observer, had a ton of traffic. I was a deal guy. Dave Hamilton, I reached out, said, hey, I think this would be something. And, Dave is my podcast co-host today. We've ran the Business Brain podcast for 11 years. And so we started that business, and that kicked out and generated, I think my kids' education cost about $850,000 all in.
Wow.
And
wow.
That business paid for it all.
Wow.
And so, I just got on with it. It was like, hey, okay, start the company, generate revenue, go. Started a few other companies along the way. my bio on X is like, started 10 companies. I've tried to start probably 20 or 30, right? But 10 of them that took off. And then my next larger one that did well was Tech Restore. I sold Mac Rescue or Rescue Systems we merged with a company in the Midwest, and I eventually went up selling out to those partners because we had different agendas that I didn't really understand. But then started Tech Restore and built that up. Our hook at that time, our whistle, if you will, was we put an empty box in every DHL truck in the country, and we'd pick up your laptop. If you contacted us by 2 p.m., we get your laptop that day, overnight it to our repair facility, fix it the same day, and overnight it back to you. And it was awesome. And we took that model and did it with school districts that had thousands and thousands of iPads. We did the same thing, and we did phones, and we did everything. I feel like I kind of squeezed revenue and wealth out of that Apple space all the way till it became like everybody did it. Staples was doing, iPhone repair and this kind of thing. I was like, I got to get out. I got to get out of this. So sold that company in, 2017, and just started experimenting, following my curiosity like I always have, and wanted to do different things, and did a bunch of stuff in between, and brought me here today. I'm on X, and I'm learning about productizing my knowledge and helping other people. And we own along the way, we bought real estate, and we own vacation rentals, and my wife runs that business. So we've just kind of done a lot of different things, and I've been fortunate to be able to follow my curiosity, and brought me here today.
That's awesome. So you started the podcast in 2015, right? So what prompted that? Like you're just doing all this cool stuff, and you're like, I'm going to start a podcast?
Like I said to you before we started recording, I can't stop talking about this stuff. This is just my life. I can't turn off my business brain. I'm constantly like, how does this place make money? They sell socks, or whatever. And so I reached out to, we ran deals on the web for a while with Dave Hamilton. And then I thought, this Dave has run a podcast called Mac Geek Gab, and they're massive. They have 70,000 downloads per episode, and he'd always done that. So I try to partner with people that offset my weaknesses. And so I reached out to Dave one day, and I said, hey, listen, I think people would like to talk about it. We called it the Small Business Show at first. And I said, I really feel like entrepreneurs in small business, I have this hero framework. And of course I apply it to myself because it helps me, but it's a heroic endeavor to try to start something from nothing and hire people and have an impact on their lives and be a servant leader. And I wanted to speak to those people. I wanted to talk to them, to the person I was, up late at night, when my kids were in bed and wife went to sleep and it was midnight and I was working, midnight to 2 a.m. trying to get something off the ground. I wanted to speak to that person and share, hey, you know what? You will get to the other side because it's consistency and persistence. And so I reached out to Dave and said, look, what about this? I don't think anybody's doing it like I would like to. And then we just started talking. And so we've talked every week this is our 11th year, 636 episodes.
And that's awesome. So is the format you and him chat? Do you bring other people on, or what's kind of
we do? Yeah. So we've done a lot of stuff. We've changed a lot. So, we used to do about an hour show. For a while, it was just us. As I got better at it, I was, I sucked at the beginning, of course. I didn't know what I was doing. Took us 2 years before we started getting sponsors, but we've had, Amazon Pharmacy, LinkedIn, Shopify is a huge sponsor for us, on and on and on. And then we did interviews for a while. It was great. I love doing interviews. And, but then everybody started doing interviews. So we switched it up, and then we changed our brand to Business Brain. And then we flipped it to shorter episodes, started really growing fast. And we track our engagement and see that, people stuck around longer when it was a half-hour show versus an hour. They had smaller bits of time. So now we do 2 shows a week. We record them one after another. And we push them out on Wednesdays and Fridays. And, we get, it's not like it's a huge, but it's part of my, of course, I always want to make money, right? It's just a rubric in my life I can't turn off. So it's part of my revenue stack, and it's profitable. And, we get like 1,000 downloads a day on it. It's not a huge show, but it's if you do more than 10 episodes, you're like in the top 10% of podcasters because most people stop.
Crazy.
Before 10. And if you
Wow.
make it to like, if you just keep going and going and, then you get connected with an ad agency and then it also prepares you to speak in public. It prepares you to be comfortable behind the mic and then comfortable behind the camera. For years, I was like, nobody wants to watch us record this show. But my kids would be like, yes, they do. Yes, they do. So then we started doing it and we stream it on X and Facebook, YouTube, everywhere now, LinkedIn. We do it every week. So it's cool. I really enjoy it. It's one of my favorite times of the week. And it makes me nervous a lot because I don't I got to figure out something to talk about. I don't want to sound like a jerk, or I don't want to sound like I have it figured out because I don't. And so it pushes me and challenges me and makes me uncomfortable. And so that's one of the reasons I love it.
Yeah, that's great. Content in general is so interesting because we just live in this creator economy now. And I feel like the entrepreneurs and the business owners that understand the importance of like putting yourself out there, being behind a camera, being behind a microphone, like they're just moving faster. They have a leg up than those who are like, no, I need to sit behind a computer in a dark room. And like, that's how you build a business. It's like, I just think that, I'm impressed by how well you've done that as I've watched you continue to grow on X and stuff like that. So, and that's part of the reason we started this podcast. It's like, a lot of people that are thinking about buying a business or starting a business, they have no idea where to go for information. Yeah, and like everyone who's trying to, I shouldn't say everyone, but a lot of the people who are trying to give them information are trying to sell them stuff. You know what I mean? And like, not everyone's going to be right for my brand or Rolling Suds or even right for franchising. Yeah. But I think that interviewing entrepreneurs and saying, hey, like, why do you do the things you do? And like, how hard is it truly, and like understanding, understanding really what they're getting. It's really hard. It's really hard. And, and the people who make money online, they obviously they want to minimize how hard it is so that they can sell more products. And so I think there's a big space for what you're doing. I think there's a big space for diving deep. I think it's so important for people to understand what this is really like.
I agree. And I think that it's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur, to start a business, to figure it out. I always say, I think, it's not for everybody, but I think it's far riskier to rely on someone else to give you a paycheck than it is to rely on yourself. And you have to, it's brutal. It can be, the highs are high. My wife always says, the highs are high, the lows are low. And I always say, the right spouse is a force multiplier. So you got to have your spouse on board if you're married and get going, because it's ups and downs. And I've had lots of downs, but you learn resilience, and, you learn that you can depend on yourself, and that's a really powerful thing. I always talk about this thing, I call it the $1,000 brain switch. And, because everybody throws these big numbers out, like, $10 million and 10x this and all this, and that's great. But, there's a lot of people that don't know how to make $1,000. And if you can show someone, like, look, let me show you, this is how I would do it, and this is it, and you could make an extra $1,000 a month, that's life-changing. Not just the money, but the shift in your brain, the way you program and the language you use and the way you talk to yourself and the way you become independent. It's powerful. And I really love it because I've just seen it work over and over again.
Yeah. And for me, like, so I was, totally agree. I was an employee up until September of 2022. So, I was working for someone else, making them a lot of money. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I was being paid well for my, really well. And, but I was like, wait, I did some math and I'm like, I know how much I increased the enterprise value of this company over the last 2 years. And while I'm being paid fair for my stuff, like, I don't own any of this company. And it's like, if I just took this big risk and did it on my own, what would that look like? And I joke with people that I became a searcher before I knew what a searcher was, and I got like I had no idea. I was just like, I'm going to find a great brand and I'm going to franchise it, and I took a leap in entrepreneurship. So it's all relatively new for me. I mean, I acquired the company in January of 2023,
Wow.
So
That's awesome. That's growth. I know a couple guys that are, just getting started in your franchise. And I love following like Ethan, Relander and following his journey. And, that's cool, man. It's so much fun. I just put it out there. Yeah, it's very difficult, but if you can get a support group around you and you can talk to people and the stories you'll be able to tell, even the brutal stories, I have found that it endears people to you and draws people to you if you're authentic about the wins and the losses, and sharing that and like you said, publicly, and now it's so easy to share your journey, and people love reality TV, man. And like I said, I've had the time of my life, and I'm continuing to do it. I'll never stop. There's always I have total shiny object, syndrome. I'm always looking at starting something new and figuring something out. So finding the X community, the SMB and entrepreneurship community up there it just blew my brain up in 2024. Is when I got involved in it. And
is that how soon it was? It was just last year, really, when you got involved in X?
Yeah, January last year I had 540 followers. And
wow.
And, I just got.
And what are you at now? You're at like 20,000 or something?
34,000.
That's insane. That's insane growth, dude. Man.
Yeah, it's been great, and it's been just listening to people, what they wanted to hear about. And I had no agenda. I was just starting to talk and share, and thought, well, it'd be cool. I can tell people about my podcast, and I can, do whatever. And I met, some great accounts that really helped shift what I was doing. And I did, like I said, I had no agenda. I was just sharing stories. And, I have a lot more gray hair than most of these guys. So I can tell my story in reverse. I always say it makes me sound smarter than I really am, but, people benefit, I think, from the ups and downs and sharing that kind of stuff. And, it's been really cool.
What are some things you've learned growing that fast? Because that's a big growth on X. I mean, it takes people years and years and years to get above 30,000 followers, and you did it in a year. What, for someone who's got a business or wants to start a business, like what are some things you learn, and what's some advice you can give?
Yeah, I think finding your people is really important. I didn't get involved because I thought it was just a bunch of garbage up there, and then I was like, and then my co-host Dave, he's like, yeah, no, you just got to kind of fine tune the algorithm. So I did that. I was like, oh, not interested. Then I followed the right accounts. And so that's important. But also when finding your people is getting involved in groups. When you start interacting with other accounts and answering or replying, you got to get in the replies, especially as a small account, because nobody's going to see your stuff if you're under 1,000 followers, that kind of thing. So just get in the replies and reply to accounts that you really like. And if you're in the SMB space or entrepreneurship, get up follow Girdley, follow those guys, follow me, and then reply. And then what happens is as you build those interactions, you send DMs to those people and be like, hey, what are you working on? And start talking and jump on call. I remember Parker Cox, who's in my business group, he was like, hey, are you, taking DMs and jumping on calls with people? And I was like, no, why would I do that? I was just not even thinking like that, a year ago. And he's like, well, that's where all the magic happens. I was like, okay. So I started doing that. I'm like, hey, you want to jump on a call? I got a Calendly account, and set up Zoom. And so just started talking with people. And just, I always say, my 4 favorite words are, how can I help you? And yeah, I just started doing that. How can I help you, man? What can I do? And I could share a story, or I could give you some tips. And so getting involved in that community, then I got asked, on some other podcasts, and other people started liking my content, but I still didn't really know what I was doing there. And then, as I grew to about 10,000 accounts pretty quick, like within
10,000 followers.
10,000 followers, yeah, within, I don't know, 5 months maybe. And the algorithm is very different now. It's a tougher grind. There's no doubt about it.
It's completely changed for me.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Yeah. But then I just listened to my audience. Look at the analytics. What time of day should you post? Well, your audience will tell you. What content gets the most value? Your audience will tell you. And so I started talking about, in August of 2024, I started talking about auctions for the first time. And auctions have been a part of my businesses, every business I've had. I used auctions. I stumbled into auctions when I was in college. I was buying storage units, and learning to flip that guy. I'm just a deal guy, and buying stuff and flipping it while I was, still in school. And I did it with, storage units. I did it with houses. I've done it with cars, cranes, tractors. It's all the same. It's just the system. And so I started talking about that concept in August, and that's when my account really blew up. And I had one post mid-August that picked up over 5,000 followers. And I was just talking about Costco. Yeah, buying from Costco auctions. I was just started out. I was like, wow, people really dig this, right? So I started talking more about that, of course, because that's what took off. So now, I have a day. I probably post 5 to 7 times a day, and every day there's an auction post. I always find, it's like a treasure hunt. And that's how I spend my evenings. I sit, chill out, and I'm looking, I have my laptop in my lap, and I'm looking for stuff, and I find a good, interesting deal, and now I just share it with everybody. And it's cool, and it's life-changing in the sense that you could build a business around it by reselling. You can save a ton of money by using those products for your company. We own vacation rentals, and I buy product there for that business. And so listening to your audience, really important, and getting involved. But like everything else, it's a grind. I have been grinding for a year to build that account and to turn it into something that, it's turned into a business for me. Definitely.
Yeah. So what do you do to make time for it all? Because you have 10 existing businesses that.
No, I don't have 10 existing businesses. I've had them over
started
time.
10.
Yeah.
Got it. So what's your portfolio look like now? You've got the content, you've got the podcast. Yeah.
I'm an investor, so I've got a bunch of investments, but it doesn't take much of my time. And my wife runs our real estate business, so I don't, I'm her employee for that company. I'm a facilitator for Tribe. I do some stuff with them, but this is it for me now. Basically, after I hate to use this word, but after 2017, because I'll never be retired, but I retired from having employees. I have contractors that work for me to help me manage stuff, and I have an assistant, that kind of stuff. But I don't want a big group of employees anymore. I've lived that life, and so my day is. My time is the most valuable thing I have, and I have a ton of time. During hunting season, I hunt 2 to 3 days a week. I fish like a son of a gun during spring and summer. I travel all over the place. We're either up in Tahoe. We have a place up in the Sierras along the McCallamy River. I go there all the time.
Where do you live?
I live in Northern California.
Which part?
Yeah, up near. I'm like 40 minutes east of San Francisco, back in the hills. I live in Lafayette.
Okay.
Yeah.
So my best friend lives or is from Orinda.
Yeah, that's right next to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm
figured
right next to Orinda.
Yeah.
A lot of tech people in Orinda. It's like the first. Once you come through the hills through Berkeley, it's like the first town or city, I guess that you could say, that you hit, and then you come into Lafayette.
And then I grew up in Southern California.
Oh, nice.
Newport Beach.
Beautiful.
And went to college at UC Santa Barbara.
Awesome.
And spent a ton of time up where you live.
That's great. I used to go to Halloween every year in Santa Barbara. Man, it was crazy. On the playa.
It's legendary. Halloween in Santa Barbara is legendary. Somehow I made it 4 years living in Isla Vista.
That's it.
And it was just like a wild 4 years. I
loved
be in the library till like 10 o'clock at night studying on a Friday, and then I'd go party all weekend long, and then somehow graduate with honors, but party all week long. It was insane. It was wild.
Good times, man. I love it. Yeah, and I love it out here. It's ridiculously expensive, and some of the stuff bothers me. So but it motivates me to I got to make more money. I got to do more stuff, and we've had a great, just continue to have a great run here, but. It's super hard work. I don't try to sugarcoat it at all. And I always, I try, what I do, I think is very accessible. It's easy for people to get into this reselling and auction thing at a small amount. But if you want to scale it, it's a commitment. And I always tell people, live below your means as long as you can. I lived in we lived in a small, my 5-year house, we lived in it for 17 years. And then we, were able to kind of exponentially move up because we kept it tight. And by living frugally, it allowed us to take all kinds of risks that, to like, let's start a new business. Well, I need, a couple $100,000 or whatever to get going. Okay, go ahead. And let's pump as much back into the company as we can. So if I had kind of, kept having that lifestyle creep and moved up and had, expensive stuff, it would have been much more difficult. But I can tell you now, getting over the grind, it's so much better. And when like it's Tuesday, we're like, hey, let's go to Napa, let's go this, and most of our friends can't go because like, man, I got to work. It's like, well, what? Or we're going to Tahoe, and people are like, yeah, I gotta come up after 5 there, and I'm just like, well, we're gonna go Wednesday, because so if you put in that time, that first 20 years where you could just grind, and you got to take care of your family, you got to be there for them. But my kids were just around our business. The biggest wealth I have in the world is my family and the time I spent with them. And I was with them all the time. I was a Cub Scout leader. My wife was a Girl Scout leader. We did everything, trips, sports, theaters, all the stuff you do with your kids. But we were always there. You don't have freedom, but you have massive flexibility to be around when your family needs you. And maybe you're working at midnight, but that's your choice, right? You time shift to get that benefit of your life. And I can tell you, I see the massive difference in the way my kids think and how they view the world and how independent they are. It's really great.
And how old are your kids?
They're in their early to mid 20s now. Yeah. My son just graduated and he's living down in Santa Barbara.
That's awesome. So, did he go to UCSB?
No, he went to UNR. Yeah,
okay, cool.
He had some group that went up there, and it was just he's like me, maybe not the great student, but a hustler, know how to sell. And my daughter is living in Manhattan in New York. She went to school out there, and she just got married. And I think they'll work their way back to California. But, they're just super independent kids. Or, minute they got out of school, they're off our payroll, making their own way, figuring stuff out. And I'm really proud of them. And especially when I look around, a lot of young people, I think, have been, especially with like COVID, it really stuttered a lot of the launch pad for young people. It's really frustrating. And I know it's frustrating for them. I think building independent kids that have confidence in themselves is super powerful, man. It's the biggest reward in life.
Yeah, we have my son turns 4 on Tuesday.
That's cool. Great age.
And then my daughter's 2.5, and then we have a baby boy on the way that'll be here in June.
Awesome.
Congrats, and they are thank you. I resonates with me what you're saying. I mean, they are everything to me. Yep. And I think like when I launched Rolling Suds, like my daughter was born November 16th of 22, and I closed the deal for Suds on like January 9th of 23. Wow. So it was like we're founding a startup, and we have a newborn and a 19-month-old or 20-month-old toddler as well. But it was very important for me it was a grind at the beginning, and it still is, but like it was very important for me to build systems, and I know that's something you talk a lot about.
Yep.
And build systems and build people that run the systems, because if you don't build if you build the systems, then you still have to manage the systems. Like you build the people also that manage and improve upon the systems. And now I have a brand president and an entire C-suite of executives in place that run Rolling Suds, and I provide value and strategic leadership to my brand president. And then we spend a significant amount of time on content creation and doing things like this. because it drives lead flow, obviously, but
Sure.
it also, even if leads don't come from the content we put out and they come elsewhere, they typically will follow me as well or find me somewhere and learn more stuff. And so it really helps a lot. But I also I enjoy it. And last week, I left on Wednesday and I was on a family vacation with my whole family, and I brought my in-laws because they help out a lot. So we paid for them to go to Tybee Island in Savannah, and we
Awesome.
got a place on the beach. And I had one phone call for work during that time, and so it's really important for me to kind of try to build a life that I don't want to retire from. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. There's no reason. Yeah, no reason to retire if you set it up right. And yeah, you're right. Figuring out that system. I always say, I didn't make this up, or come up with it, but goals are for losers, right? Winners use systems, and if you read James Clear in Atomic Habits, he talks about that a lot. He took it from somebody else, but he really clarified that concept. And we don't rise to our goals; we fail to our systems, right? So,
right.
Looking at systems that I'm a dopamine hunter, right? I constantly am searching for these rewards for my brain. So I've had to structure my entire life on those rewards, because if I set this big, long goal out there, man, I have a hard time with it. But daily systems, I wanted to write a book. Well, how do you do that? Well, you write a page a day. That's it. Don't even think about the book. You just write a page a day. And you know what? You don't even have to be a year into it, and you'll have your book. And on and on and on. Oh, you want to start a content business? Okay, you got to produce content every single day. And it can be content of big, long value posts that try to help people. Or, I took a picture of my dishwasher yesterday and it had 125,000 views. So it's a mix. It's a mix of what's driving, developing systems. It's everything. And I harp on it over and over and over because it truly works, for sure.
What are some of the kind of systems that you've built, whether it's personally or professionally, that have worked well for you over the years?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that helped me in the beginning, because I'm not a morning person. I look at morning routine guy up at 4 a.m. or whatever. I'm just that's insane. I couldn't do it. No way. No. I'm going to bed sometimes at that late. So I realized that, that's not for me, but I was programmed growing up that, all these successful people, they're up at 4 a.m., 5 a.m. or whatever, And so I realized okay, I have to flip this and work late, because I'm just, my system is at 10 o'clock at night, man. I'm just getting going. And so I use that time, and I wanted to spend a lot of time with my family. So don't get me wrong. I have made the mistake of putting business first, no doubt about it. And I used to travel a lot, and my wife finally was like, hey, you're missing it, right? So I shifted this so I could leave every day and pick my kids up at school or be the scout leader or whatever, hang out with them. And then when everything started to shut down, I would just go back to work. And so I don't really consider it work. Work is, if you've never mixed cement or carried, big boulders or big pieces of wood up a hill or dig a massive trench, you should go do that, because that's work. But sitting on the computer or talking like we're doing now or coming up with business ideas, I'm not sure that's work, because that's enjoyable, and that should
right.
be anyway. But 10 to midnight was just my fertile ground. I learned so much. I took courses, I read books, I read biographies, I implemented things, I built things, I started entire companies from 10 to midnight, and then after, later. So that was one of the first systems I learned. And that taught me also about inverting, like Charlie Munger always say, do the opposite. Well, I've done that, where flipping things upside down and thinking, one of my most successful businesses we had was selling parts, computer parts and laptop parts, everything back into China, because there was demand there because they couldn't get certain components. And so we're like, well, how do we do this? And you find some people and you hire an operator in Shenzhen, and you slowly build rapport with them and trust them. And then you hire a group of engineers over there, and you got to rent an apartment for them to sleep in, and then they learn you ship product, and you have to get it. Sometimes you have to ship it to Hong Kong, and then they kind of gracefully get it across the border, we'll call it, and sell the components. So the system of looking at things in the opposite has served me really well. Trying to think in a different manner, but I didn't have a lot of confidence in it when I was young, right? Because you're just like, well, everybody else is doing it this way, and people were doing really well, especially like corporate life. I was like, man, I've posted about this. Like, I'm super intimidated by guys that wear suits in boardrooms and corporate kind of thing. I don't ever want to be them, and I feel like my life is amazing in the flexibility, but it was a struggle when I was younger because I was carving this different path, and thinking that I didn't know if it was right. Now I know it was for me, not for everybody. But
right.
But yeah, those two like life systems were dramatically impactful on my life for sure.
I love that. I think that's really, yeah. You're wired to like listen to what all the business gurus say, and it's like you get up, if you don't get up at 5 a.m. and like do a cold plunge, like you're not going to build a good business. And it's
That's
like,
right.
No, you can do it differently. And, so
for sure.
Do you have a favorite business that you started?
I really loved the deals on the web business. Because I'm just such a deal guy, and I'm always searching for. I can't pay retail. It's just not part of my DNA. So I'm always looking for deals. And when I was able to monetize that, so I needed $1,000 a month to pay for my kids' preschool at a Montessori school, my first child, and I was like, I don't have it. How are we going to do it? And so 10 to midnight, I got my wife on one side of the table. I said, listen, you're going to go find coupons. You're going to post this. And it was an affiliate play at the beginning until we could get sponsors. And, we sat across the table from one another a couple hours every night. You're tired, your kid, it is little kids and everything else. But seeing it start from nothing and doing it with your spouse, and then being able to get it to the point that we're making a little bit of money, let's hire someone. And then just letting it go after a couple of years of grinding every night, because we published a daily edition, and then seeing it grow from $1,000 a month to like $30,000 a month in revenue. Man, I felt like a rock star, and it that business ran for over a decade, and then we had a buyer, and I learned a lot because the deal fell apart right at the end, and it just popped my bubble and blew our motivation. And we just kind of let the business flounder for a few more years. It continued to make money, but then eventually it was not, because we weren't paying as much attention about it. Dave and I talk about it to this day. That was one of my favorites because it was also, I didn't have to go buy something to sell because I'm a reseller. I to make, $500, I have to go spend $500, right? And sometimes you have to spend millions of dollars. But I also loved, Tech Restore was so fun, and the people were amazing. Like I really do love being around a team, and I'm very happy that I think I've replaced that up on X in my business group that I hang out with and everything, because after selling, and there's a lot of headaches with having employees, but there's also, a lot of joy in walking in and walking around and talking and, hey, what do you want to do with your life? And, and helping people achieve things. There's a lot of joy. So I love doing that. And I love the deals. I wish I still had a big warehouse, even though I vowed to stop, buying, because I love that part of it. But, either of those. I don't know if I have a favorite. They've all been so different. When I sold Tech Restore, I vowed never to sell something with a plug again. That was how do I learn something brand new? And so I'm sitting there, and I didn't have anything going on. And then I found a couple little deals that had like handbags, which I know nothing. If you're not watching this. I'm wearing camouflage. I know nothing about, fashion, but my wife, my daughter, other women, they went crazy over this stuff. So I was like, well, this is interesting. So I was like, I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to learn about social commerce, because that's how everybody was selling this product. And I didn't know anything about it. So I studied. I spent 8 months, really digging deep, buying, trying to learn who was doing it the best, and then buying from them and seeing what the experience was and trying to figure out what I could do better. Because I've had 25 years of marketing, customer service, packaging, the little things that are really important to people. And so I ramped up and I was like, okay, I'm going to develop a system. I just want to make $500 a day, but I only want to work for an hour. So I figured I'll sell 10 bags a day, net $50. And I started with that concept. And I was totally wrong, but I was wrong in a good way, because I learned that as I moved up in the food chain of brands and quality and stuff, I could sell one bag and make $500 a day, or I could sell and make $5,000 a day. So over 3 years, I did 3.7 million in sales, and net I sold about 7,000 handbags, and I made $557,000. And it was awesome.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah, because it was like I was my wife is like she has an NFL licensed. We've done some deals with them, and so she was running this NFL business, and here I was selling handbags. So it was just like this invert. Again, it's this opposite thing. Invert. You don't have to know a lot about it. You just have to know about the delta, the deal. And in doing so, I met people all over the world. I mean, I have suppliers in Japan, and selling back into China and just in Europe. And so if you go down the rabbit hole, really kind of dig, if you have the luxury, because I spent a year with no revenue basically, but I just kept digging. And I was like, there's something here. And, I had the time of my life with it. It was just so great to figure it out, talk about it. And I tell that story now. So the most valuable thing, you made $500,000, but the most valuable thing I got out of it was that I can talk about it to a guy like you and to go, wow, that's cool. Because I'll tell that story forever,
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's awesome. What were some of the tough times in those kind of 20 years? Because entrepreneurship certainly doesn't come without the tough times, right?
Yeah, there's a lot, man. A lot of time, your employees get paid before you do. Mm-hmm. And I learned that to heart. There's just, I'd have paycheck, because once I got these businesses going and they were either corporations, LLCs or whatever, I became like a W-2 employee. I got a check and everything else, and you set up systems and retirement and all that stuff. But, your checks sit on the counter, because if your business isn't doing great, you don't get that cash in. You have to, pay everybody. So that's a challenge. And then it's fine. I just talked about this story the other day. When I was one of my first businesses that really took off, and I'm a very impatient person. I want things quickly. And I when I was young, I thought you could cut corners, not do your due diligence, not do as much research. And I had a person that came to me and said, hey, I'm authorized by this megacorp giant company to do some stuff, and I can authorize you under my umbrella. You can do this stuff and make money. And I was like, great, we're going to make some money. But, we did this stuff for a few years and it turned out that person was not authorized to have us do this. And I wound up getting sued and getting involved. It was just a mess. You should try to avoid lawsuits at any way you can, because it takes your eye off the ball, because you have to deal with this insidious thing that also kind of chews away at your soul, because the other side is trying to paint you as this devious, not good person, even though you may be and you made a mistake. That doesn't work in the legal, battlefield. And so, we fought that for a while, and then actually, wound up settling, and settled for like $1 million to pay this company back. And I didn't have it. We didn't have the money at all. But I paid the first installment. It's $150,000, and then we were going to pay monthly. And I put that on my credit card because I didn't, have it. I had to pay it off. So over, the thing was like, I felt like ashamed, that I had made this massive mistake, and it really hit me hard, and to where I didn't even want to look in the mirror. But once I started to get through it, and I remember I used to like hit myself in the chest every day. It's like, you're going to get through it. You're going to get through it. My wife was involved. I had to come home and tell her I lost $1 million. She's like giving our kid a bath, and she turned to me, and I was just waiting to get just railed, right? Because of course it was a stupid mistake that I made. I was responsible. It's my accountable. I was accountable. And she just said, okay, well, how are you going to pay back? There was just no alternative. I couldn't go bankrupt because I'm a big story guy, as you tell. I love to tell stories. And I wouldn't feel authentic if I had that as part of my story. I had all this great stuff and made all this money and built wealth. Oh, but I left a bunch of people holding the bag. It just wouldn't work for me. Mm-hmm. So I paid it back. We paid it back over 5 years, kept the company running, eventually sold that business. And when I was going through it, I thought, I just kept telling myself, this can't be the defining moment of your business career. Just can't. But I was wrong. It turned out it really was one of them, because I learned that I was unstoppable. And I also learned that, you don't make stupid mistakes, and who you do business with, not to put the blame on them. It was my fault. But there's power in taking accountability. And once I really took accountability for that failure, it's a massive failure. And all the people I put at risk, my employees, their families, their kids, all that stuff, I was a different person. And I realized, there really were no shortcuts, and I just had to grind, and I had to build solid businesses and surround myself with better people that would advise me better and help me do better research.
I think I read somewhere like your business works on you more than you work on it.
Oh, yeah. That's good. That's for sure. I mean, I
read that somewhere.
Yeah. I'm definitely a changed person from all these stuff I've been through and ups and downs. And even just today, I mean, I've got imposter syndrome all the time. I mean, I constantly, sometimes before I post, I'm like, yeah, nobody wants to hear this. But you know what? They do. And you have to, the language we use in our heads about, I have a coach. I have a branding coach that helps me and, get through this and figure this stuff out now that I'm trying this new business and trying to figure stuff out. So reaching out to people it's valuable, and learning to do it, because I don't know what it is. It's like the human condition. And to your point that you made earlier is really important about how people looking at these online personas and just quick, and it's going to do this, and you'll get 10x that and this, and not to beat up Grant Cardone, which I don't know anything about him, but other people that are just, we're gazillionaires and look at, and this, that's not what entrepreneurship has been for me at all. It's been real work, real struggle, but also massive rewards. And so, figuring out how to share that and at the same time how to encourage people, that's good, or that's a worthy cause, I guess.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, for me, the business needs, especially a fast growing business, needs a very different version of the leader of the business very quickly. So like, a year ago, I was doing all of the franchise sales myself, because I wanted to make sure that the franchisees that were coming into our brand, like when you don't have a bunch of proof, like they're buying into me and my vision on how we're going to build the biggest power washing brand. So I was like, all right, the first, X number of franchisees, I want to walk through the process start to finish. Yeah, and we hit like a critical mass where I was like, oh, now I need like a sales team, because this is like, I remember this, you'll like this. There was one point in time where I was booked out 5 weeks and there was a waiting list of people that were like, if someone cancels, I'll drop whatever I'm doing that day, and if you put me on the waiting list. And so I had a waiting list and a 5-week thing, and I'm like no one's going to do this part of the business better than me. Like, I've just got to hire more people.
Yeah.
And what was the reality of it is like, I was the bottleneck. You know what I mean? Like, I was the one that was
Eventually.
like bottling. Like, I can't, you got to duplicate yourself.
Yeah.
And so I stepped out and put in a chief development officer who built budget blinds from 80 locations to 1,600 locations. Like, he's like
Smart,
one of the best in the industry, So I stepped out, and then I was like, oh, this isn't the only leader that I need in the organization. The director of marketing that I had, the company had outgrown her. The director of operations that I had, the company had outgrown her or grown him. And so I needed to now go also recruit like other C-suite executives and build a leader to lead all of them. So like just from April of last year until now, we built an entire C-suite, CFO, CMO, CDO, brand president, like
that'll make
the
whole
thing.
Yeah.
It's a completely different business now. And
yeah.
I'm a different human. Like,
Sure.
I had to become a different human.
And I wish I was better at that. I mean, my wife will always, at some point I would get the message like they don't need you anymore. Yeah, that's tough. It's tough to hear, especially the first couple times. Like, what do you mean they don't need me? This whole thing is me. I take this stuff personally. I cannot separate myself. I take everything deeply personal. I just do. If a customer's not happy, it hits me. It affects me. If things aren't working, if we can't pay the bills, and there's been time where you can't pay the bills. 2008, 2009, one of our companies, man, it was like the phones just turned off during the recession. And I had all these people and laying off people. It's not like you can say, tell HR to lay off 10%. No, you got to go sit in the room with these people that are relying on you, right? And relying on your business, and you're letting them go, and you're trying to ease them down, and you may not have money for severance. You may not even be able to pay the rent on your building. So, you're getting out of the way and figuring out who's best. That's the way you scale. And I wish I was better at that. That I think some of these companies definitely would have grown more. Had I been able to do that. But, it worked out.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it did. I mean, I struggle with so where I'm at now is I struggle with I need to emotionally disconnect from like this business being part of my identity.
That's hard.
Like that's really hard because, in order to get a business from like nothing to $10 million in revenue or more, like it takes literally, you have to attach it, and it has to be part of your every being and your wholeness of who you are, because it's so hard to do. Like, it's like,
exactly.
There's a reason that very few people do it. And now I'm like, okay, we're there and we're past there and we have almost 300 units, but like, I'm not rolling suds, and it's okay. Like, I don't have to be. And so I'm really working through that. And like, I feel like once I cross these like personal growth plateaus, like the business then can go to the next level as well. So it's really, entrepreneurship just in general is really interesting.
It is. I mean, I can remember pulling up to a building in the Midwest that, they bought one of my companies, and seeing the sign on the side of the building, I was like, this is crazy. What's happening here? And feeling that you started this, your baby and nothing. It was zero, right? And you grind and, you built it and took all this risk and put your blood into this thing and then seeing it there, it's very different. And it gets easier, I think, after you've done it, a couple times. But I think the biggest message I always enjoy sharing is that we're all just the same. You're trying to figure it out. There is there's people that you can follow and kind of mentor. I don't really recommend reading business books. I recommend reading biographies of people that have succeeded in business. I think they're far more effective because, you can learn systems. I mean, you should read Atomic Habits, that's for sure. And the E-Myth, if you're just getting started. Those are great books. But you see when you read these biographies of people like, even the big ones, Rockefeller and Carnegie, and then, Jobs, but, everything by Walter Isaacson you should read, and all his stuff. But it's weird. And it's, if you're alone, because I don't think you can talk to civilians. And I know that. It's not that you cannot talk to civilians, people that don't own companies or not entrepreneurs. You can't talk to them the same way because it freaks them out. And a lot of times it freaks them out because they care about you, right? And they're like, what? This sounds so weird. What's going on? What do you mean? You got this and that. And excuse me. But you need to surround yourself with other entrepreneurs. You're, Aaron, starting your podcast to talk to people. It's a huge hack. And on my podcast, I always say that. I'm like, I always learn the most. I learn the most. I get to meet amazing people. I learn all these tricks. And even if it's just I'm talking with Dave and I, we do this thing called business therapy, where I'm just like, hey, man, I need to rant. And I just get on and rant. And it's like, it's destroyed me. And I don't know how to solve this problem. And people, write in. It's like, look, try this, try that. And I think sharing your content online is the more vulnerable you are, the more people connect with you. And when you ask for help I don't know how to figure this out. Like I posted yesterday about being impatient. I'm super impatient. Drive me nuts. And I have this, I'm struggling with something right now that I'm very impatient about. And I was in my truck and I got back in my truck and I just posted. I'm like, who's got the cure for impatient? Because I am just so afflicted with this. And, conceptually, I understand. Oh, look, you just started this thing and it's going to take time. But I'm very impatient and sometimes to my detriment. So connecting with other people and sharing what's happening and what's going on. And, I've been talking with, one of your franchisees, Ethan Relander, because he's like, I don't know if I have time to share what's going on every day. And I was like, man, it's so powerful. Look at the people that you're resonating with, of your wins and losses. I was like, I am just glued to it. And I know other people are. And, he doesn't have a big following, but he gets big views on those accounts. So it's authentic enough. You can keep it going. So being vulnerable and, I think that it's important for people to understand what you've gone through.
So, I mean, that's a good segue into one of the things I wanted to ask you about. You've talked about this group you're a part of, Parker Cox, and this kind of business group. So how have you found community? Tell me about the group. How does it, because I think that's something that people who are listening to this might not know about entrepreneurship either, is like, it's a very, unless they own a business or whatever, but it's a very lonely space. And having that kind of community for me has been a big part of it. And I'm just curious as to how it's impacted you and helped you grow.
Yeah. I've always had partners for a lot of my businesses, which has helped a lot. Somebody you can talk to, but it also can be a disaster. So you have to watch out. But when I got going on X and started, I kind of started seeing similar names and gotten, look at that. And then Nick Hulinski, co-founders Nick up on X, who you should definitely go follow. Yeah.
I followed Nick's great. He came on the podcast. I love, Nick's
incredible.
a great guy.
Incredible. And he helped me a lot. I connected with him, and then he started this growth. It was called Growth Madness last year. It's like, hey, let's everybody get involved. And we'll have a contest like March Madness, and we'll do brackets, and we'll help each other grow. And so we got stuck into these groups. They called them pods. And there was, I think we had 10 people. And out of that 10 people in our pod, maybe 4 or 5 were active. And Parker was one of those people. And then we started, as we kind of moved over to another group of just active people, we brought some other people, Joe Benson from Eversight, he came in, and then Alex Forbes from Lane 17 Cabinets, and Tyler Purcell, Dan Magazoo, all these guys. And it really became like after the Growth Camp thing was done, it just became like a support group during the day. What's working, what's not? Can you guys read this and see if you think it's any good? How do I change the hook? The first 280 characters. But then we just kept at it, and so we had a meetup. We met in Nashville last year and connected.
Oh, really? That's where I'm at.
Oh yeah, nice. Yeah,
Yeah, I
we
live in
went there. It's
Nashville.
awesome. You do. I'd never been there before. It was great, man. We hung
Yeah.
out at Kid Rock's place. We always wound up there at the end of the night. It was terrific, and it's been a great bonding experience. And we just got Jake, success with Jake, in Florida, Event Decor. He's in there now. We've got another guy that we brought in. So you can build your own group, and that's what you should do. And I always tell people the way you build it is in the replies. Who's responding to you? Who do you seem to connect with? Send them a DM. Who responds to you? Hop on a quick call, and then just go, hey, you want to start a group and help support each other? Because I've been in a few other ones too. Some of them better than others, and some that kind of fizzle out. But I used to call them just my X group or whatever, but it's actually it's my business. It's my support group, and they are there to vet things I'm working on. They hold me accountable. They lift me up when I'm feeling down and something's not working, and we all help each other. And there's stuff going on in there. Businesses are being bought and sold, and people are trying new things and getting advice. It's great. And what I love about it, the most is everybody has something to contribute, like Dan Magazoo, who could be my kid. He's I think he's 23, 24. He blew my mind because I was kind of floundering around, mid last year. And he was just like, well, Shannon, what is your offer? And I was like, what do you mean? And just that on the surface, it sounds so simple, but he was right. It's like, I wasn't offering anything, and I really had to drill back down into the value of what I was doing and everything. And just so he's helping, and then he put up, hey, these people want this or trying to do this deal with me, and they want some of this or that. And then I can help him based on my experience, and give him guidance. So getting involved, getting involved in business group is great. And I'm a facilitator for Tribe now, Trenton's group, which I love. And
I met Trenton at Main Street Summit last year.
That's awesome. Yeah. And, that's a great group to be involved in. It's wonderful support. You're networking. And, with the group, you have to nurture it. We created a logo, and I had T-shirts made up, and I shipped everybody a T-shirt. That's how I started to get attention on X. I was in the replies, and people would say comments that really resonated with me. So I'd make I got a stock photo of a guy holding a blank T-shirt, and I would write that phrase on that T-shirt I use Pixelmator, and then I would put their account name, and that would be my response to them. And they would be like, oh, that's awesome, da-da-da-da. And then guys were like, how do I get that shirt? So I just started ordering shirts and sending them to big accounts. I sent Parker. Cool. Yeah, I sent Parker a shirt because he posted something that his grandfather said. And he was like, I would buy that shirt because I was like, you don't have to buy it. I'm sending it to you. So everybody thought I was in the T-shirt business first, but I was just ordering them from Vistaprint just to get attention. So, what do you do to get attention? And how are you different from everybody else? And I just started sending out T-shirts. And so when we call ourselves the Content Cowboys, it's kind of stupid, but it's fun. And I made T-shirts up for everybody, and everybody has a T-shirt, and then we do a weekly call, and we've kept that, or bi-weekly now. We kept that call going, and man, it has made all the difference. And I feel like those guys are there for me over and over, and I would be nowhere near where I am without their help.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
When I launched Rolling Suds, I came from a franchise background. And I saw these groups that franchisees were able to build with each other, and then the group chats that we would create and stuff like that to help. And I was like, I want that same thing. But being a franchisor and then doing it in the way that we're doing it is it's pretty niche. I know there's a ton of franchisors out there, but not all of them grow at the rate we're growing. Not all of them have the capital that we have. It's just to do it right, it's a very specific. It's very specific. So I was like, I'm going to create an invite only, home and commercial service franchisor mastermind. And
it's genius.
Yeah. So I was like, all right. So I reached out to a couple people, and I'm like, hey, this is what I'm thinking. And they're like, we're in. So we meet for 90 minutes once a month. I pick a topic, or
That's great,
whoever
man.
picks a topic.
Yeah.
And then we just talk about that topic. And it's very specific about like a potential problem that a residential or commercial service franchisor might have and how to kind of solve it or attack and different things. And then we started meeting once a year in person to do kind of like what you're talking about with Nashville, and get together, spend a day and a half, do a day of meetings, and then a night going out, having fun. And so we've now done that two different years now. And it's been massively, I mean, it's just really helped. It's amazing.
Yeah. So it's your responsibility to either get involved with an existing group or build a new group. And it's not hard. And, I started this thing. I turned on subscriptions on X because, they're like, hey, you can go. And I was like, all right, well, I'll turn it on. Like, who's going to subscribe to my stuff? That's silly. But all of a sudden people started subscribing, and I was charging $5 a month. Right. And it's like, well, what can I do for these people? What is my offer? What's my value? So I started I didn't want to have to create special content for them really, because I was like, man, it's a lot of work. So I started a DM group with them, and everybody got invited. And then I said, okay, I'll do a monthly call and we'll just answer questions or whatever. But it grew so fast. So once I got to 100 subscribers, I was like, man, I can't manage it in the DMs. It was impossible, and it wasn't searchable and all this stuff. So I moved, and this was difficult. I moved everybody over to Kajabi, which is a community host, and I have some digital products there too. And we've got 170 people in there. It's only $5 a month, but it's buy-in, right? It's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to commit to pay $5, and it's awesome, man. It's people asking questions. Does this look like a good deal? How do I manage this? What about freight? How do I do this? This happened. How do you finance? I mean, like you said, it's just everyone solving problems, sharing wins, sharing losses, and it's great. So the groups, and I'm not a real joiner kind of guy, but
yeah,
I like starting the groups and being a leader in them, and it's worked out really great.
That's so cool. I love that. Community is such an important part of, and is that part of the reason why you got involved in helping with Tribe and stuff like that too?
Yes, I think they saw what I was working on, and then Trenton, I had a call with Trenton, just one of those, hey, we should talk and connect. And I think some of my content resonated with him. And so he asked me to be a facilitator. I just started, at our first meeting a few weeks ago. And then I did follow-up meetings individually with each of the business owners. But it's terrific, man. There's so much going on. They have a very active community of support and networking resources, and then they have great speakers that come in and talk. It's a terrific mastermind, but you get out of it what you put into it, right? You have to really make it to the meetings, and you want to put it out there, and just like we're talking before, you want to be vulnerable. And it's like, yeah, it just doesn't work. Nobody wants to talk about failing, but it happens all the time. It gets easier as you get older, I think, because you're just like, well, whatever, because you're on the other side of it. But when you're going through struggles like, oh man, I got this massive payroll. How do I deal with it? Every truck I have, problems. I don't know how to get this. The bank won't give me a line of credit. It's tough to open up about that stuff. So if you got a good community that you can share that with, you'll be the better for it, for sure.
Yeah. So, what's the goal for content for you? I'm sure you have a BHAG, growing that fast last year. I mean, I'm sure there's some goals. Could you talk a little bit about what kind of your goals are with the content game?
Yeah. So like I said, I'm a systems guy, so I'm trying to just develop a system that can keep me engaged, because I have a problem. I get bored after a while, and I want to be, I always say, hey, I'm really very selfish. I'm doing this because it gives me purpose, and I'm really a very purpose-driven person, and so I want to grow it as much as I can, as much as it continues to give me the freedom for my time, as much as people find value in it, and I will expand out to other platforms once I get X. I'm not, I probably have. I don't know, some length of time left on X, to figure this stuff out. So the systems it's the daily things that lead to the bigger things. So I'm developing systems, automating some of this stuff that it can still be authentic. I don't like using AI really. I do write all my own content. I don't have a company. I don't have anybody, but I create the content and I get some help pushing it out to some of the other platforms. I never go on LinkedIn, but I have someone that manages my LinkedIn stuff. But every bit of content I write and every response I respond to when it's applicable. So I'm not sure. I think content is probably the next decade for me of building out stuff and turning it into something. And I'm not sure where it's going to grow. There's so much opportunity. You know, I've written books and published them and had, you know, #1 sellers and stuff. And,
that's awesome.
And yeah, it's a lot of fun. And I want to continue to be able to change people's lives. I want people that hire me to coach them on a transactional basis. I want to continue to see them. It's transformational. It's far more than just transactional, right? This concept of going on your own and becoming independent and being able to create, you know, not just make money, but build wealth on your own. That's transformational. So as long as I have that coming, I'm going to keep the pedal down and keep pouring fuel on this.
I love it. Well, if people want to kind of follow along your journey and continue to get to know you or get value from your stuff, where can people find you?
Yeah, just come up on X at Shannon Jean and ShannonJean. Send me a message, send me a DM. Tell me about your business. Maybe I'll have you on our podcast or just, you know, come on yours. But let's help each other continue to grow and, you know, keep pulling the string and finding curious things to hopefully you can make some money at. It's kind of a side benefit. I haven't chased the money first. I've always kind of done the opposite, and hopefully the money follows. So, but
that's great.
Great to be on the show. Like I said, I can't stop talking about this stuff. I love it, and I love seeing what you're building too. It's having an impact on people's lives for sure.
Thank you very much. Well, Shannon, it's been great getting to know you, and I'm sure I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks again for having me on, Aaron.
Thanks.